How dare you? I choked when I said it, as 2 tears dropped from my eyes at the same time. It was supposed to be a moment of triumph. The plans had been meticulous, the sacrifices enormous. Every sleepless night, every lie I'd told, every piece of myself I'd traded away, all of it was supposed to lead here to our secured partnership, to us. But the person standing before me wasn't the one I thought I knew. They flinched at my words. Their lips parted, a defense forming on the edge of their tongue. But I didn't give them the chance. All this time, how dare you? You knew, and you didn't say a damn thing. I cracked. I didn't mean to let the emotion through, but it slipped out, jagged, embarrassing, and raw. It started to rain, cold drops landing on the steel railing behind me. It softened the edges of the silent night, smearing the city lights into streaks of color. A perfect metaphor, really. Uncomfortable, undone, and smudged. I stepped back, desperate to put distance between us. The wind caught my hair and whipped it across my face, but I didn't bother to move it. It was easier not to see them clearly. I only wanted to protect you, they said. Their voice was steady, but I knew the cracks were there, hidden just beneath the surface. If I told you the truth, it would have ruined everything. Protect me! I laughed bitterly, wiping at my face. The tears were long gone now. The rain was doing a fine job of replacing them. Do you even hear yourself right now? You didn't protect me. You controlled me. A flicker of guilt crossed their face, but it was gone as quickly as it had come. I wondered if I'd imagined it, if I was seeing only what I wanted to see. I hated them for what they'd done, but even more so, I hated how my heart still fought to forgive them. I looked past them. Down the slick alley, my tears made the shadows move like living things. Somewhere out there in the darkness was the answer to all of this. A file, a name, a truth that could either set me free or destroy me completely. They'd tried to keep it from me, to shield me from it, or so they claimed. But I was no longer a child. Not anymore. I turned back to them, taking in the figure I once trusted with every part of me. Their shoulders were hunched now, their hands trembling at their sides. It was cold out. But was it fear? Regret? Or was it just another manipulation? Goodbye, I said, my voice sharp, despite the tremor running through me. And before they could stop me, I stepped into the rain, letting it swallow me whole. There would be no more lies. If the truth was waiting in the dark, I was going to find it. Alone.
The cold edge of November had settled in, biting enough to feel like winter, but not enough to truly quiet the world. I stood in the kitchen, the air heavy with the rich smell of rosemary, turkey, and sweet potatoes. It should have felt warm, but the silence between us stretched colder than the draft slipping through the window. Callie was sitting at the table, scrolling on her phone, a glass of wine untouched next to her. I watched her as I peeled the last of the potatoes, her shoulders slouched and her face set in that detached expression I'd grown used to over the past few months. You know, it wouldn't kill you to help with the potatoes, I said, attempting something light, but my voice came out sharper than intended. She didn't even look up. You're doing fine without me. There it was, that familiar sting, the one where no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to get it right. Not anymore. I let the silence hang between us for a few seconds before sighing. I'm trying here, Callie. She finally glanced up, her eyes cool and unreadable. Trying what? To guilt me into helping with Thanksgiving dinner? Or just trying to be the martyr again? I froze, knife clinking against the cutting board. I wanted to snap back, to remind her that this wasn't about guilt or martyrdom, that I was doing this for us, for her, for my family. But instead I swallowed the words, letting them settle like a stone in my chest. Callie had a way of twisting everything I did into something wrong, and lately it felt like she was more interested in winning arguments than fixing anything. I'm inviting you to my family's Thanksgiving dinner, I said finally, evenly. It's a big one this year. Everyone's coming. I think it would be nice for you too. I already told you I have to work, she cut in, leaning back in her chair. Why are you always pushing this family stuff on me? I don't want to sit around pretending to enjoy small talk with people I barely know. You've been saying that for 3 years, Callie, I replied, my voice rising despite myself. 3 years of excuses. 3 years of missing out because of work, or whatever fight we just had. My family always asks about you. They like you. They want you there. Do you even care? Her eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin line. Do you know how exhausting it is to feel like I'm always under a microscope with your family? Like I have to perform just to be good enough for them? No one's asking you to perform, I shot back. They just want to see you. I want you to be part of it. But every time I reach out, you pull away. The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something in her expression. Guilt, maybe. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by that familiar wall she'd built around herself. I'm not going, she said finally, her voice flat. And I don't need you to keep bringing it up. Thanksgiving came and went. Callie stayed home, citing a work deadline that I didn't entirely believe. I went to the party without her, juggling questions from my aunts and cousins about why she wasn't there, offering half-hearted excuses that didn't satisfy anyone. My mom, always perceptive, pulled me aside at one point and asked, "Is everything okay with you two?" I didn't know how to answer her. By the time December rolled around, the weight of it all had settled heavily on my chest. Callie and I had been drifting apart for months, maybe longer. The arguments, the distance, the way she made me feel like I was constantly failing, it had all piled up until I wasn't sure there was anything left between us. I didn't want to be the person who left someone during the holidays. But the truth was, the relationship had already run its course. We were just clinging to the pieces because it felt easier than letting go. But there was one thing I couldn't ignore. Callie had no one else. Her family lived across the country, and she barely spoke to them. She had no close friends here, no real support system outside of me. If I walked away now, she'd spend the holidays completely alone. It wasn't who I wanted to be. On Christmas Eve, my family was hosting another party, an even bigger one than Thanksgiving. Lights twinkled from every corner of the house, and the air was thick with the smell of pine, cinnamon, and cookies baking in the oven. Everyone was buzzing with holiday cheer, wrapping last-minute presents and setting the table for dinner, but I couldn't stop thinking about Callie, alone in our apartment. I called her. She answered on the third ring, her voice wary. "What?" "Come to the party," I said, skipping the preamble. "Please, just for tonight. You shouldn't be alone right now." There was a pause. "We've been fighting for weeks. Why would I want to come to some big family thing where I'll feel like an outsider?" "Because you're not an outsider," I said, my voice softening. "Whatever's going on with us, you're still important to me. And I don't want you to spend Christmas alone. Just come for dinner. You don't have to stay long." Another pause. For a moment I thought she might actually say yes, but then she sighed. "I'll think about it," She showed up halfway through the party, just as we were sitting down to dinner. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she was wearing the sweater I'd bought her last Christmas. She looked exhausted, but softer somehow, like the fight had gone out of her. My mom welcomed her with open arms, pulling her into the chaos of our family without a second thought. And for a little while, things felt okay. After dinner, Callie and I found a quiet corner of the living room. She looked at me, her eyes tired but searching. "Why are you doing this? Inviting me here after everything?" "Because you deserve to be surrounded by love," I said simply, "even if things aren't working between us anymore." Her breath hitched, and for the first time in a long time, I saw her walls crack. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I replied. "Just be here. Be with people who care about you. That's enough." We broke up a week later, just after New Year's. It wasn't dramatic or angry, just two people finally admitting that what they had wasn't working anymore. But I'll never forget the way she hugged me before she left, clinging to me like she didn't want to let go. And maybe, in some small way, she didn't. Sometimes, love isn't about staying together. Sometimes, it's about letting go with kindness, about making sure the person you once loved knows they're not alone, even if you can't be the one to stay by their side. And as I watched her walk away that night, I hoped she knew that. I hoped she knew she'd always have a place at the table,